Nothing new round here. Better watch what you do round here, cause we ain't cool round here. We only loyal to the crew round here. Make it clear, cause we true round here. But is you down? Yeah. Ain't nothing new round here. Better watch what you do round here, cause we ain't cool round here. We only loyal to the crew round here. Make it clear, cause we true down here. But is you down? Yeah. Nothing to up under the sun. My nigga Mel did he here for every shell in his gun. Running clean from misdemeanors to the felonies done. He got the tripping over money, never fell into none. When I'm done, I just hope you see the picture painted vividly. Every zone I'm in, I like to hold the same energy. Brothers grew up in the same home, but ain't enemies. Now the woman you love a bitch like fuck chivalry. Can't stand to look at this chick. She sucked literally every nigga dick because his truck is an infinity. Flow acclaimed critically, every verb is synonym. In it like a glove, whatever genre you fit me in. Someone the day is brave, the rest digging him like a bitch. And that girl poison like Michael Bivins said. Niggas get the internet, suckers front like they been a threat. Let me interject, we can compare intellect. Couple years I'm gonna retire, but I ain't finished yet. I'ma keep following these rappers until I get a tech and wonder if it's metaphor. Ask me what the metal for, wonder why I get fly fringes and all this leather on. Reckon I ain't sketching when I tell them that the weapon drawn. Rather do the stepping and be the one getting stepped upon. I just hope you soaking up knowledge and all the lessons learned. Don't even try to put out this fire, just respect the burn. Nothing new round here. Better watch what you do round here. We ain't cool round here. We only loyal to the crew round here. Keep it clear, cause we true round here. But is you down? Yeah. Ain't nothing new round here. Better watch what you do round here, cause we ain't cool round here. We only loyal to the crew round here. Keep it clear, cause we true down here. But is you down? Yeah. Be the multitude with the words that I'm serving you. Have you pick yourself from the dust and clean up the dirt from you? Sing your soul vertical. Let me get personal. Matter of fact, hand me that scalpel and let's get surgical. Open heart surgery. Take your heart virtually. The way they take the talk, it's surprised that they never heard of me. Low key purposely, kick the shit out of adversity. My mama drink kerosene and lighter fluid been nursing me. That's why when I say I'm burning hot, I mean the third of nigga, come say you ain't chill, really you want it. Baby, tell me shit you ain't did. But nigga, you want it. Fast fuck ain't denying it. But nigga, you want it. Nigga, let me go find it. But really you want it. You want it.
Salakia, bear with us. We'll be starting in just a moment.
score. Say my name 3 times and I kick in the front door. No, I ain't greedy, but I'm hungry and I'm hunting for more. See, I'm a beast, bloody double it off over the door. I see the ops watching, no clicks, review my options. Close range with the shot, put a hole in his body. Or should I walk up with the Glock, proceed to open his top? Either way, scope it infrared beam. It's a dead shot, pressure is really nothing. I come up with the drama. Disrespect, I send my niggas on the flight like Osama. Run your mouth, you might be talking through it too to your mama. Here's the point, I ain't the type of nigga to be saying that I'ma do anything I damn sure wouldn't do. The people talking real loud, but I'm aiming for you. Luke Skywalker, and I'll be back to get your 2 live proof. Bigger rescission, I'm under mission. Beating these pussies into submission, they fiend shit. They clap my hands twice, but I mean shit. I'm on the block, calling for the rock on some fiend shit. A smooth criminal, I might J on some clean shit. God, they came back for my people redeem shit.
Hey, Shalom, Yah, Bashem Yashai Barakatah, to all the brothers, Yah, Shema, Alafan, Bashem Yashai, to all the sisters. I'm Officer 500 Zabaja of the I.S.U.P.K. under Commandant General YAHANNA. Started out 1 West, 125th Street, 1969, Harlem, New York. Right? We teach that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are indeed the Israelites of the Bible, the 12 tribes that make up the nation of Israel from the Bible. Right? So in Canada today, right? I'm from Canada. In Canada today, so okay, we're also on Clubhouse. We're also streaming on Clubhouse this history class. It's the Monday night history class. We're streaming on Clubhouse for the first time. The Monday night history class, right? In Canada tonight, which would be the October the 11th. Most Canadians are with their family members that they really don't like to eat some dry turkey stuffing and cranberry sauce, right? And they all have this idea that Thanksgiving, right, that's commercially sold to them is about family, right? They all have an idea that this day is about family. It's not about family. It has nothing to do with family, right? It's not a day of celebration if you are Native American. If you're North American Indian, if you're indigenous to the Americas or the South Americas or even the Caribbean islands, this is not a day of celebration. It's a day of murder, right? It's a day of the oppressors having a feast after slaughtering you. Right. So we're gonna go into some of this breakdown, right? Because it's a deep history of Thanksgiving, right? If anybody, for most people think Thanksgiving is about, like they truly think it's about family. And blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we only celebrate Thanksgiving because the oppressor tells us to. Right. You only want to roast a turkey because the oppressor tells you to. Right. So we're gonna definitely get into a bit of history. Give me one moment. I just gotta pull up an article right quick. Right. Bear with me as I pull up this article. So, okay, give me a moment to find it. Right. If you're watching with us on YouTube, don't forget to hit that sign in link. Also, shameless plug, tonight at 9 p.m., Commanding General YAHANNA We'll be live on Black Watch News on YouTube, right? Commander General Yohanna on YouTube with another episode of Black Watch. That's the black news for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, talking about the things that our oppressors don't want to talk about. Give me a moment. I'm just gonna pull up this article right quick, real fast. All right. So what we got here, right? We got a it's an article by a woman named Susan Bates. Most of us associate the holiday with happy pilgrims and Indians sitting down to a big feast, right? So that's what most of the world associates Thanksgiving with pilgrims and a big feast. When and they say happy pilgrims, right? The pilgrims are happy because they were slaughtering the indigenous people of the Americas, right? The people being slaughtered weren't happy at all, right? And you're gonna find this out as we keep reading. The story began in 1614 when a band of English explorers sailed home to England with a ship of Pequot Indians bound for slavery, right? So that is something that the oppressor he's always had the children of Israel in slavery, right? And so the transatlantic slave trade indeed started with the indigenous people of the Americas, right? With the Northern Kingdom, right? They left behind smallpox, which virtually wiped out those who had escaped. By the time pilgrims survived, by the time pilgrims arrived in Massachusetts Bay, they found only one living Pequot Indian, right? So by the time this set of pilgrims returned, because what was happening was, as explorers were coming back to, or the slave masters, let's just call them what they are. As the slave masters, who's the European man, as they were coming back to Europe, they were telling stories of what they seen and gold that they found and the people that they were bringing back as slaves. So that made other European men want to go in search of slaves of their own, right? Of riches of their own. Slovakia. One moment. Okay, fine. Right? So they found only one living Quatin Indian, a man named Squanto, who had survived slavery in England. So this man, he survived slavery in England, right? And knew their language, right? He knew their language because he was a slave. He was a slave since from a young man. That's how he knew their language. He taught them to grow corn and to fish and negotiate a peace treaty between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag nation. At the end of their first year, the Pilgrims held a great feast honoring Squanto and the Wampanoags. Right. So this man, there throughout history, there's always been some brother, right, who turns around and loves a slave master, who thinks that because he loves a slave master, he's gonna get dealt with nice, and that he somehow thinks that the slave master is not the devil the Bible speaks of. Right? That's what he's thinking. He's thinking this man, this beast that had me enslaved through my whole life. He's not a devil. Right? But the oppressor is always going to show you that he's the devil the Bible speaks of. Whenever there's an opportunity for the oppressor to show you that he's the devil the Bible speaks of, he's going to show it to you, right? And he's not going to hesitate to show you that he is the devil. Right. So let's get more into this article that we're reading. But as word spread in England about the paradise to be found in the New World, religious zealots called Puritans began arriving by the boatload. Finding no fence around the land, they considered it to be in the public domain. Joined by other British settlers, they seized the land, capturing strong young natives for slaves and killing the rest. Right, and this is something they've always done. Right, they've always tried to capture the strong that they can capture. Right, which is usually the young. They want the young and the women, right, to so they could turn around and mold them. The strong men, they'll kill them off. That's who's being killed, the strong men. They're looking at the young and the women, the young men and the young women, and they're saying, let's keep them, they're strong, they're young. But the older people, the older men who are eventually going to rebel and fight, they kill them off. But the Pequot nation had not agreed to the peace treaty, right? How would you? This is how we know our oppressor is a devil, right? You have a home that you built up. Some random stranger comes to your home and decides to move in to the living room and says, "Listen, the living room's yours, the living room's mine, and so is the kitchen, so is the bathroom. You can have a couple bedrooms and maybe some of the backyard, right? You can have some of the backyard and just that little corner by the fence, and you're supposed to be happy about it, right?" But these First Nation indigenous people, they weren't happy about it, and they didn't agree with it. They knew what this oppressor was doing. Sequanto had negotiated, and they fought back. The Pequot warrior, the Pequot War was one of the bloodiest Indian wars ever fought. In 1637, near present-day Groton, Connecticut, over 70, right? So we have to go back for a second. They said this was one of the bloodiest wars that was ever fought for that time, right? That really means our people are being slaughtered. Our people are being led to the slaughter. Our people are being murdered, and we know that the oppressor, he listen, at the end of it, he just doesn't care. He just doesn't have no love in his heart for 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 the people outside of who he deems is his loved ones, right? Even for his own people, they sometimes have no love. In 1637, present day, da 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 da, present day, Groton, Connecticut, over 700 men and women and children of the Pequot tribe had gathered for their annual Green Corn Festival, which is our Thanksgiving celebration, right? So take note of that because that is key, right? The the natives, they somewhat kept to some of their traditional high holy days, right? Where they would have a festival of corn, right? They would have a festival of their harvest, their first fruits, right? But this day is important because this day is going to significant, going to explain why majority of the world is celebrating well, the Western world is celebrating Thanksgiving today in Canada, and why 4 weeks from now the Americas are going to the nation of America is going to be celebrating Thanksgiving. Right? You're gonna find out in this chapter right here. Okay, let me just check on the live stream. All right, let's log. Don't forget to, if you're watching, like, subscribe, and share this video. If you have any questions pertaining to the topic, you could drop a question in the comment. We'll try to get to all the questions, right? If you have any questions about this topic, drop a comment, and you'll get it answered. Going to continue reading. In the pre-dawn hours, the sleeping natives were surrounded by English and Dutch mercenaries who ordered them to come outside. Right? That is Savat here. Now check that out. In the pre-dawn hours, that means while these people were sleeping, right? While these people were sleeping, they were surrounding ordered to come outside. Right? That is how the oppressor operates. He does it till this day. At 3 in the morning, the SWAT team, right, undercover police, plainclothes police officers will surround a brother's house, right, shine lights, big speakers, make such a racket, and order him to come outside, right? They'll order the whole family outside. That's what our oppressors were doing. That's what our oppressors did to the Quad Nation. Right? They surrounded them. Mercenaries. A mercenary is not someone with a conscience. A mercenary is basically, it's a glorified way of saying a hired hitman. Right? A mercenary. It makes it sound like all important and all special ops type. But it's just a man you pay to shoot someone. A man you pay to thrust a sword through someone. Right? Those who came outside were shot or clubbed to death, while the terrified women and children were huddled inside the longhouses and burned alive. So, right? That's what our oppressors do, right? You've seen countless videos of brothers, right, being ordered to put their hands up, and while their hands up, they're shot. Being told to comply, and while they're complying, they're beat within an inch of their life with nightsticks, right? And we just heard these paid hitmen, Slovakia. These paid hitmen they murdered women and children as well, right? That brings me to I'm gonna jump a few precepts, but that brings me to Deuteronomy 28 and 50, right? A nation of fierce countenance which shall not regard the person of old. They didn't care if there was old, what we would consider senior citizens, elders, that they were being killed, right? Slovakia, that they were going to murder. They didn't care. They said they didn't give a damn if they were old or young. They were going to kill them, right? The young women and children were burned alive, right? This is a nation. It's a nation of fierce continents. I mean, they are. Esau was blessed with the sword. The Americans love war. It's Slovakia. Not even to just say an American. It's bred into Edomite culture for that child to be fighting at a young age. Right? They don't want the child to be a child. And when they do want the child to be a child, it's really a child of war. They want that child to grow up wanting to kill, wanting to fight, wanting to spill blood. Right? a nation of fierce continents, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. In those longhouses, there were young babies as well. There were infants, there were toddlers, there were young teenagers, right? Young adolescent children being burned alive in the longhouses, right? And this is all leading up to Thanksgiving, right? While you're carving that turkey right now, you have to think about the native children that were burned alive, right? In Kamloops, they dug up native children by the hundreds, right? Those children were forced to celebrate the murder of themselves, the murder of their ancestors. Let's keep going. The next day, the governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony declared a day of Thanksgiving. Boom. You have it right there. Right? The next day, the governor of Massachusetts Bay, he declared a day of Thanksgiving. Right? Now listen to how the devil is, right? Because 700 unarmed men and women had and children had been murdered. Right. In the middle of the night, they came and murdered the men and burned down the houses. And this is what Thanksgiving is about. Right? So while you eat the Thanksgiving disgusting stuffing tonight, right? You have to understand that you're helping the oppressor celebrate the murder of your own people. Right? Again, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, they are the children of Israel. Right? So let's get back into this right quick. Again, we are streaming on the Clubhouse app for the first time. Shout out Trooper Baraki Allah. Right, I got him in the audience. He's listening. He's always in class. Yeah, give me a second. Bear with us for a moment. All right, so we're gonna get right back to it. Right, we're reading the again we're reading the history of Thanksgiving. Right, what this day really means. Right, we just read how 700 women, men and women were murdered. Right, the men were clubbed to death or shot as they were ordered outside of their longhouses. The women and the children who were held up in the longhouses, right, while the battle was being fought, or Salakia, while their men were being slaughtered, their longhouses were burned and they were burned alive. Right? Cheered by their victory, the brave colonists, right? Our oppressor, he's definitely a devil. They 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 went and murdered people in the nighttime, and they were brave. right? This was not a great act. This was an act of pure cruelty. Our oppressor has always been a monster. And their native allies attacked villages, village after village, right? This is to let you know that at one point our people were fighting back so much that they had to get some of our own people, right? The natives being of the 12 tribes, right? Meaning blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you are a family, right? They had to get some of their own people to fight back, to fight the war with them. Let's get back to this. Attacked village after village. Women and children over 14 were sold into slavery, while the rest were murdered. Right, and that's what it's really about. That's what it always comes down to. Every war that they fight is always over who's going to rule over the slaves. Right? Every 4 years they have a mock war, and they call it an election, and it's always over who's going to rule over the slaves. Um, Sold into slavery. Boats loaded with as many as 500 slaves regularly left the ports of New England. Bounties were paid for native scalps to encourage as many deaths as possible. Now, this is what they always did, right? So in history, they made it seem as though the natives are running around scalping people, right? When really it was the oppressor putting out cash bounty on native men, native women, native children for their scalps, right? And Slovakia, I believe it was either General Mahayaman or General Hazayan who broke it down how when you go to the gun ranges, right? Now, myself, I haven't personally been to a gun range in Canada, but I couldn't imagine it's too far off, right? But in the Americas, when you go to the gun ranges, they have the Indian heads as targets on the pieces of paper, and that's basically in it's basically like a memorial to scalping, right? It's something they celebrate. It's for them to always remember we used to scalp natives. Bounties were paid for Indian scalps to encourage as many deaths as possible. The following an especially successful raid against the Pequot in what is now Stamford, Connecticut. The churches announced the second day of Thanksgiving to celebrate victory over the heathen, right? The savages, right? Burning down longhouses filled with women and children is savagery. Forcing Native Americans, the so-called Gadites, to live on reservations without clean water, while $1 million elections are had, while buses filled with gas for campaign money and private jets are flown back and forth over Canada every 4 years for a stupid election is savagery, right? Forcing Native American women and the sisters, blacks and Hispanics, to be sterilized is savagery. Six 60,000 plus missing or murdered Native American sisters is pure savagery. But I digress. Let's get back to the article. During the feasting, the hacked off heads of natives were kicked through the streets like soccer balls. Right? Now tell me if that's not savagery. Right? That is definitely the savagery of our oppressor. Right? They were kicking the heads of the children of Gad down the street like soccer balls, right? But yet still, every time Hollywood makes a movie about a Native American and indigenous person, it's always some they always make the man to look to make that man look like he's just lost his mind, right? You'll have some blonde Becky in a field being chased by some natives, and they make it seem like the natives want to sexually abuse her. When that's not the case. You're at war with them. You're coming around and killing their family members. Right? Oppression will make a wise man mad. And a man who loves his family, if you kill his family, he's going to murder everything that you love. That's just what it is. Right? A man who loves his family, if you try to kill his, he's definitely going to seek revenge. Right? And this is why we have so much, not to stray from the topic, but this is why we have so much violence in our communities, right? Because a brother might get killed by another brother, but because they are not in the truth, they become enemies. And one brother might kill the other brother. Now the brother who's murdered, he has brothers, he has cousins, he has sisters and loved ones and friends that loved him, that cherished his life. And now they want to seek revenge, right? And this is why when the Most High was giving us our laws, he said it so a brother could run to another city to seek sanctuary, well, so he could stand trial for what he did. So a mob of people wouldn't bash his head in with a rock. Right? They call us savages. Uh, During the feasting, the hacked off heads of natives were kicked through the streets like soccer balls. Even the friendly Wampanoag did not escape the madness. Right? They didn't care that there was a tribe of Gadites that were friendly to them. Right? And that's how blacks, Hispanics, and natives are. We're always friendly to our oppressor. We're always friendly to another nation. We'll always show love. We'll always be like, okay, you're here now. Well, rock with us. Come to the cookout. Come eat with us. Right? We'll say, you're at our church door. Come and pray with us. Don't after Salakia. The devil that killed the 9 church members, they invited that devil in. He started shooting with them. They started praying that he would stop. They started praying to him, asking him to stop. He reloaded his gun and shot again. Right? And Lord knows what else he did to them while that crime was while that crime was happening. Right? If we one thing we know for certain, our oppressor he doesn't shy from sexual abuse. Right? The There is a record. Now I don't have a number, right? But there is a record breaking amount of priests and of so-called priests in the Catholic Church with sexual abuse allegations. And they're supposed to be the most holiest of people of the Edomite nation. Right? Well, were we? The chief was beheaded, and his head was impaled on a pole in Plymouth, Massachusetts, where it remained on display for 24 years. Right, and that's something our oppressor does as well. Right, they'll they will kill Israelites, right, and hack off limbs and put them in a jar full of saline and keep them as souvenirs. Right, during just after slavery, Blacks in the South were being burned from trees, hanged and burned from trees, and Edomites, our oppressors, they would take pictures, right, and put them on postcards. You could just Google it. It's a part of history, right? It is definitely a part of history, right? This is something that they did a lot. Smart, yeah. Where were we? Right? They had the head of this chief impaled, and it remained on display for 24 years. Right? That is cruel. Right? The killings became more and more frenzied, with days of Thanksgiving feasts being held after each successful massacre. Right? So this is where we get into it now. They Okay, so every time they would go and murder Native Americans, murder the children of Gad, murder the other nations, right, which are in Israel, they would have a feast for Thanksgiving. It got to a point where the feast became so many. Like, it would be like a feast on Monday. Well, damn, we're going to have a feast on Sunday, a feast on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? That's what was happening. Right? The killings became more and more frenzied, with days of Thanksgiving feast being held after each other, after each successful massacre. George Washington finally suggested that only one day of Thanksgiving per year be set aside instead of celebrating each and every massacre. Good night. Now ask yourself, why do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Right? I'm going to repeat why the oppressor celebrates Thanksgiving. Right? I'm going to repeat this one more time. So, okay, let me just check on my StreamYard right quick. Throughout it for everybody tuning in. Again, if you got any questions on the topic, right, type your questions in. If you're in the Clubhouse app with us and you're in the audience and you got any questions, you want to come up and ask a question, just raise your hand and we'll bring you up. Rock here. Let me get back to my article really quick. Right. So we're gonna get back to this, right? This is why the oppressor celebrates Thanksgiving. One second. Bear with me one moment. I'm just trying to set it back up. Slovakia. Give me one moment. All right. So where were we? Right, so back to why the oppressor celebrates Thanksgiving. The killings became more and more frenzied, with days of Thanksgiving feast being held after each successful massacre. Right? George Washington finally suggested that only one day of Thanksgiving per year be set aside instead of celebrating each and every massacre. Later, Abraham Lincoln declared Thanksgiving Day to be a legal national holiday during the Civil War. On the same day, he ordered troops to march against the starving Sioux, Sussex in Minnesota, Slovakia. This story doesn't have quite a fuzzy feeling associated with with it as one where natives and pilgrims are all sitting down together at the big feast, right? And that's definitely true, right? So now you find out like Thanksgiving has nothing to do with you getting together with your family. You can do that any night and have a feast any night. You can eat turkey anytime, but you want to do it when the oppressor tells you to do it, right? It seems like our people love to do anything the oppressor does. We're just trying to fit in, right? You don't even want to try to fit in. We have our own feast. Texas, let's give a big hand to Texas, right? The Texas cookout, the Slovakia, the South, the South had a cookout, a big cookout in Texas. I believe it was in Houston, right? And they just did that. That wasn't in the name of no oppressor. In fact, there were no oppressors at the cookout, right? We got to get back to our culture, get back to knowing that the oppressor doesn't like us. He's the devil. Let's see. Right. So I'm gonna drop that for now. Right. I'm gonna get Proverbs, Proverbs throughout it for everybody listening. Right. I'm gonna get Proverbs 31, Proverbs 3 and 31. Bear with me. Right. Because we gotta not envy the oppressors. Right. We just learned. Right. And for anybody who's tuning in now, right. The history of Thanksgiving is basically every time they would go out and massacre. You know what? I'm gonna try and read it one more time, see if I can get it. But every time they would go and massacre the Native American Indians, they would have a feast. Eventually, they would have so many feasts that eventually they decided that we can only have one feast per year. Right? I'm gonna get right back to it. I'm gonna read that paragraph one more time. Right? And for anybody wanting to read this article that I'm reading, you could hit me in the back chat if you're on Clubhouse, and I will send the link to you. Or you could just simply go in Google and type a story of Thanksgiving by Susan Bates. Right. But this is what I was just reading a second ago. The killings became more and more frenzied, with days of Thanksgiving feasts being held after each successful massacre. George Washington finally suggested that only one day of Thanksgiving per year be set aside instead of celebrating each and every massacre. Right? So every time the oppressor, right, who's the devil the Bible speaks of, every time he would go out and murder Native American Indians, he wanted to have a feast after, right? And now blacks, Hispanics, and natives, we go and celebrate these feasts. We go and spend our money in the stores to just to have a big feast that has nothing to do with us, that has everything to do with the murder of a people, right? Until this day, the natives, they're not living in good condition. They're living with a lot of trauma, right? They're living with a lot of trauma. They're living with a lot of things that have to be dealt with, right? Let's get Proverbs. What is that? Proverbs. right? So we're gonna get Proverbs 3. Proverbs 3 and 31, right? Let me, Salakia, where are we? Proverbs 3 and 31. Envy thou not the oppressors, and choose none of their ways. You're not supposed to want to be like, listen, I can't wait for that Thanksgiving, right? Who cares about Thanksgiving? Envy not the oppressor and choose none of his ways, right? This is not what the Most High wanted, right? Every time you eat Thanksgiving dinner, you're celebrating the murder of your own people, right? The the fake Salakia, the so-called Jewish man, because of the Holocaust that he went through, right? Which doesn't compare, right? It doesn't compare even to a percent of what blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans went through. Hey, Shalom, Maki, right? It definitely does not. It doesn't compare to what blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans went through. But yet still, they still went through something that they don't want you to ever forget, right? What I feel the same way. I don't want you to ever forget how my people went through a genocide. How my people were murdered, their homes burnt down. My people were hung from trees, and every time they would do it, they would have a feast, right? So let's read Proverbs 33 and 31 again. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways, right? Don't choose. This is a day the Most High doesn't like. Don't choose any of his ways, right? It's not for you. It's not for us, right? The Thanksgiving day also it also happens in the fall, right? Now, just to say alone that what they, because we know that our oppressor, he likes to mix in his God with it as well, right? We're gonna actually break down the Greek and Roman gods of the harvest, right? It's damn near the same God, the same deity, some female figure that they worship, right? I'm gonna jump to Amos 5 and 21 right quick. I'm gonna jump to Amos 5 and 21. Hold up, let me get it. Right? Because you gotta envy not this oppressor and his feast days. These feast days are trash feast days. You can have a dinner at any time with your family if you really want to have a dinner. At any time with your family, you can have a dinner, right? But because the oppressor tells you, listen, we're celebrating the murder of these natives today. You want to jump and do it with the oppressor. Right, so up here, let me get back to it. I despise your feast days, and I will not smelt in your solemn assemblies. Right? The Most High, he doesn't care about how that turkey smells in the oven. He doesn't care that your grandma puts a little bit of seasoning, and it's not like the dry turkey at the Edomite's house. That turkey smells disgusting to the Most High. It's about the murder of his children. He doesn't care that you put a little paprika in the nasty stuffing, or you got some cranberries out of can and decorated your table like you're some Roman. He doesn't care about that. he hates these days, right? He hates Thanksgiving because the natives that were being murdered hated Thanksgiving. He hates Thanksgiving because Native American children were being burned in their homes. They were watching their father being clubbed to death. Right? So he hates Thanksgiving because of that. Right? Hold up. Right? So he doesn't care about these feast days or their solemn or how the oppressors gather and how we try to mimic it. Right? Let's jump to Baruch. Let's jump to Baruch 3 and verse 4. O Lord, right? Baruch 3 verse 4. O Lord, Almighty, thou God of Israel, hear now the prayers of the dead Israelites. Right? You gotta hear the prayers of your dead ancestors, right? Who were murdered for some so-called Thanksgiving, right? Who were murdered for land, and then the oppressor had a dinner after, right? He drank blood with his sword, and then he went and ate meat at his table. And that's what our oppressors have done. And of their children, which have sinned before thee, right? And hearken not unto their voice, Slakia, and not hearken unto the voice of their God, right? So again, this is always something crucial that we have to remember as well. We're going through punishments because we turned on our power, right? And he's having a nation rise above us, and we're getting very low under this nation, while this nation becomes very high. They have an election every 4 years just to turn around and tell you, listen, we're going to start to teach your children about homosexuality, and there's nothing you could do about it, right? But we have to remember the cries of our people, right? So, yeah. Right, so let's get to where are we? We got a few more precepts we're gonna read, right? And that's the thing that we always have to remember, that there's been so many things that have happened to us. Salakia, so many crimes that have happened to us that now you could just type it in on YouTube and you can see it happen. Right? Now it's not even stories anymore. You're actually getting the visual. Right? You're getting the visual of what's happening to our brothers and sisters. Right. Get me Trooper Baraki Allah, can you get me Deuteronomy 28 and 50, Baba Shah?
Khan Wakan. So like I said, 28 and 50.
Khan.
Khan Wakan, there's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 50. A nation of fierce countenance which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young.
Right, a nation of fierce continence, which shall not show regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. Right, they killed us at every chance they've gotten. Right, they've always killed us, and they felt no way with it about it. Right, the Sitting Bull, he knew who the devil the Bible speaks of is. Right, so did Mike Brown, and so does Trayvon Martin. Right, like we have so many brothers, like the whole Cree Nation. Right, let's not forget they turned around and marched our people across across they call it the Highway of Tears in Canada. Right, in the states they call it the Trail of Tears. But they basically moved the children of Gad, the so-called indigenous people of the Americas. They moved them from one part of the country to a next, right? In the Americas, from like the Florida region where the land was good, right, good for hunting, good for good soil, to Oklahoma where it's more landlocked, right? Then in the Canada, they did the same thing. They moved them down there from the East Coast out into the prairies, right? From Southern Ontario, more up north, right? Till you get to Sault Ste. Marie. You have so many reservations in Ontario, and none of them are in good condition. Absolutely none of them are in hospitable conditions. It's not a place you would be like, yeah, I want to raise my family here, right? Slovakia. Right. Can you get me drop that, Baba Krishna? Let's go to Deuteronomy 32 and 7.
SHALAM. Is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 7. Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, he will shew thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee.
Right. We got to remember the days of old. Right. You've been fooled. You've been lied to. There's a heavy misconception that Thanksgiving is a day of let's just be thankful that we're together as a family, right? And as a Salakia, as a black man, right? As a so-called Hispanic and Native American, you might buy into that day because your family's been ripped apart. Your family's always fighting. These are the curses we're going through, right? Your family is totally in the gutter. So the one day that you do get to spend with each other, you're gonna more think of it as this is a good thing because Salakia, Baraki Allah, Salakia, can you hear me?
Khan.
Right. So if it's basically like blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we look at it as a good thing that we get to celebrate Thanksgiving and spend some time together. But why exactly would you say that we look at it like that?
So, like, I guess because a lot of time that while we don't really have, we didn't know we really had any like specific day or holidays to have um to have fun or whatever besides like birthdays, parties, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. So we gravitate towards that because of the bad times we have in the world.
I'll settle for that one. I'll definitely settle for that one because that's definitely a part of it, right? Like Barack Allah said, like we don't even realize that we have a specific set of holidays that we're supposed to celebrate. right? I'll definitely settle for that one. But now we like again. We teach the holidays that we're supposed to celebrate. You just have to open the book of Leviticus and go to the 23rd chapter, right? And you'll basically see the holidays that you're supposed to celebrate, right? And just like Barak Allah said, like, so we look at the oppressor's days as okay, this is a day that we're supposed to gather together, right? Not knowing that we have our own holidays, right? We also look at that day and say, let's take advantage of this day because we got a day off from slavery, and we never get a day off from slavery, and we're always fighting as a family. So let's just choose this one day to get together, right? There's been countless family so-called oppressors holidays, right? So many countless days of oppressors holidays where you get together with your family, and it just ends in a tragedy. I mean, it ends with some cousin fighting her other cousin. Sometimes it's over the same man they're sleeping with, right? Or it's just over some family drama that it's benign. It's asinine. It's basically it doesn't mean anything, right? It's so soft. It's so simple of a situation. But brothers and sisters in the world, because we don't know who we are and we don't know we're supposed to forgive each other, we make it be everything. We make that situation the reason why we're we're fighting. The reason why every family gathering has to be has to end in some type of argument. Right? Read that verse one more time.
Khan. It's Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7. Remember the days of the old.
All right.
Consider the year.
So Salakia. Baraki Allah said he read, remember the days of old. Right? This is what Moses is telling the children of Israel. Remember the days of old. So let's remember the days of old, right? We've lost our language, right? You can find that being prophesied to us in Jeremiah 17:4, right? We walk our brothers and sisters walk a highway of tears or a trail of tears, right? In the States, it's over 2,200 miles, right? Our oppressors believe in manifest destiny, meaning they could definitely kill us and justify it by saying we're killing these people because it's our destiny to rule this land, right? And they would justify countless killings of us, right? We're remembering the Indian Removal Act of 1831, right? 50,000 removed to Oklahoma, right? That's from Florida to Oklahoma. We're remembering how the 60s scooped up children from in the hundreds, right? And now those children they're being found in grave sites. We're remembering how the Catholic Church had electric chairs in Canadian residential schools, right? We're going to choose to remember that. Remember how they would hang us and cut out the fetus of a mother's womb, right? That's what our oppressors did. They would hack off body parts and put them in jars, right? Just think about it, Salakia. Barakia Allah, have you ever seen how sometimes they show this on TV, especially in sitcoms, when the oppressors like we're going to the cottage, right? And then they show their cottage, and on the walls of the cottage, it has bear heads or a rug made out of a grizzly bear. It has deer heads or moose heads hanging on the wall, and it's plaqued.
Khan.
That's what our oppressors used to do to us, right? They would definitely make postcards and mail them to each other, right? If you even look at our camp signs, right? One of our camp signs, we have a picture of a brother being lynched, right? And a woman being lynched. The sister in the picture, she's being lynched because they came to kill her husband. He left and he didn't tell her where he was going, so she couldn't tell them, right? They didn't care that she couldn't tell them. They hung her and burned her because they couldn't find her husband. That's what we're remembering. Read that one more time.
Khan, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will shew thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee.
Right. You ask your father, he's gonna tell you. Right? Go ask your grandfather about what it was like for him growing up. The horror stories you're gonna hear. The Black, Hispanic, and Native American experience is a horror movie. If you've ever wondered where they get their movies from, it's our life, right? You look at a show like Squid Games or Survivor or a movie like Hunger Games. That's all our life. That's how we live on a daily basis, right? Give me give me Jeremiah 17:4, Baba Kasha.
Khan. There's a book of Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever.
Right, Salakia. You're gonna find out that we lost our culture, we lost our heritage. We we were forced to go through many different genocides. Thanksgiving is the story of the genocide of the Native Americans, right? There's been many genocides. If you ask an American, they'll tell you they've been oppressed for over five. A Native American, they'll tell you they've been oppressed and been fighting off the oppressor for 500 plus years, right? We lost our heritage, so now we think abortion is cool, right? Sisters on Facebook have open conversations about if I don't want this baby, I'm gonna have it killed. And you have sisters who say this with no way, with no conscience, that they're, and then they'll say, now here's the mind, right? This is how you know blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we're sick because of the trauma, right? We're not thinking correctly. A sister will say, women empowerment, right? I'm a feminist. You have to care about women, right? But then turn around and have an abortion. Now, do you think all abortions, right? And this is just a general question. Do you think all abortions are just a male child, or a young daughter is being murdered too? Right? You'll have sisters who turn around and say, "Well, there's no good men," right? Not, and then turn around and say they're okay with abortion. Well, the fact that the child that was in a mother's womb, right? The son, the child that was in a mother's womb, could have grown up to be a good man for your daughter or your granddaughter, right? It shows you that our sisters don't really care about about anything other than what the oppressor tells them they should care about, right? And that's because we lost our heritage, we lost our way. We don't know that we're the children of Israel, right? Columbus, when Columbus came to to the Tainos, right? He captured 1,100, right? Baraki Allah, out of 1,100 Tainos that were captured, how many do you think survived the trip back to Spain?
Slovakia, probably a little more than 100.
Yeah, a little more than 100. Out of 1,100, 300 survived. 800 died,
Khan Khan.
right? For the next trip, they got the cargo insured. Meaning they put insurance on human lives because at the end of it, an oppressor always wants one thing. An oppressor wants his money, right? Let's see what else we got here. Right. So also another thing that our oppressor was doing within history, right? Another thing that our oppressor was doing in history was they were they were telling Native Americans, we're gonna buy land for you, right? And because somehow we have this thing where sometimes we want to believe and trust the oppressor, we think about it like, okay, you're right, right? You're gonna buy this land from us, and you're gonna pay us how much? Okay, we're good with that. We're gonna accept it. So they turn around and and then they say, listen, we're not gonna pay you. And now the Native American people, they're heartbroken because they believe the oppressor was gonna actually keep his word. And many wars were fought like that. There are over 1,000 treaties that were broken between the oppressor and the children of God. Right? Get me Ecclesiastes 7 and 13.
Khan Khan.
Follow the shot.
This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 13. Consider the work of God. Who can make that straight which he had made crooked?
Right. Read that one more time, Baba Kashan.
Khan Khan. Consider the work of God. For who can make that straight which he had made crooked?
Right. One. Salakia. Pertaining to this subject, what is this subject talking about? Right. Pertaining to the subject that we're dealing with today, what is this verse talking about?
Salak, the one. He made our oppressors crook. He made our oppressors crooked. In a way, they can never act. They can never act straight.
That's definitely the genuine breakdown for this precept, right? But use it like if you're gonna use this precept for this subject, how would you use it for this subject that we're talking about?
Salak, the one. The natives, well, our native brothers, they held the oppressor, the white man, when they came over here, and to show how crooked they were, they never well, they turned their backs on the natives. Let's say turned their backs, or they betrayed them without any regards, without any remorse, Salakia.
Yeah, you could definitely say that, but I'm gonna give it to you for time's sake, right? Basically, the Most High. Let's read this verse again. Read it one more time, but read it slowly, Lord.
Khan Wakan, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 13. Consider the work of God.
Right. So you gotta consider what the Lord has done. Right. For the children of Israel, consider what the Lord has done for us. He walked us out of Egypt. right? He destroyed the Egyptians. Now you'll have some very simple people in the world say, well, we went to the bottom of the Red Sea and we looked and we couldn't see any chariots. And you're thinking to yourself, well, goddamn, you're acting like wood doesn't rot, right? You're acting like currents don't move things in the water. Now let's not forget the number one opponent, time. Time defeats everything. With time, things decay, right? To a point where it's not there. It goes back to where it came from. It started out in the elements, it goes back to the elements, and that's because of time, right? Keep reading.
For who can make that straight, which he
Right?
had made crooked.
Who can make straight, right? What is the straight talking about?
So like the oppressor who can make them straight.
The Yes and no. The straight that we're talking about is good, right?
Khan Khan.
That's what this is talking about. Who can make straight, right? The straight would be good, right? You ever heard someone like in the world they say walk a straight line? Have you ever heard people say that walk a straight line,
Khan Khan.
right? Implying like that implies do good, walk that straight line, like it. Salakia. Some kid that got caught smoking outside of school, skipping class and drinking and all that stupid shit that teenagers do in high school. A teacher's gonna tell him walk a straight line, meaning show up to class, stop smoking, stop drinking, stop skipping class, do your homework, right? Pay attention in class, right? 1 second. Salakia, Brakia, give me 1 moment.
Khan Khan.
All right, so you hear them say, walk a straight path, right? Meaning do good, right? What's the opposite of walking that straight path?
Walk a crooked path.
Right. Exactly that, right? And you would see it because it's right in the verse, right? So something that the Most High said that was straight would be the high holy days in Leviticus the 23rd chapter. If the high holy days are straight, what would be crooked?
So like, can you repeat that?
Okay, so we established that straight is good and crooked is bad, right? The
Khan
Most
Khan.
High established the high holy days as good. Those are straight in His book, right? What would be crooked?
Your precious holidays like Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving.
Right. So now let's read this verse again.
Khan Khan. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 13. Consider the work of God, for who can make that straight, which he had made crooked?
Right. So who can make straight what the Most High has made crooked? Right. Meaning, Thanksgiving is crooked to the Most High, right? Hanukkah, that's straight. Feast of Tabernacles, Day of Atonement, first fruits, blowing trumpets, Passover, Salakia. What else am I missing?
Feast of dedication,
Uh, Salakia, what was that one?
like a Day of Atonement, Feast of Dedication, Passover.
Right, dedications is Hanukkah. There was one more that I was missing.
The
Oh
Day of
man, it was
Atonement.
my favorite part of Passover. Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Khan Khan.
Right? That was my favorite part because I was dipping that unleavened bread in some. I had some caramel that I used for ice cream and Salakia. Listen, the unleavened bread and the caramel, that was hitting different. Right? I had some lamb. I cut up the lamb the next day. I put that in the microwave with the unleavened bread, and oh man, I was going to work. Right? And it's coming back up. Passover this year, if you can make it, man. They're saying Passover is going to be in Florida this year, right? The next Passover is going to be in Florida. Listen, Texas, Florida. Listen, the UPK is doing it big, right? So who can make straight what the Most High made crooked? The Most High says the oppressors' days are crooked. His high holy days are straight, right? Let's read that one more time.
Khan Khan. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 13. Consider the work of God, for who can make that straight, which he had made.
Right. Like the Most High made those days crooked. Listen, Hanukkah, dedications, Purim, Tawab. Those are straight days. Those are the days we're messing with, straight up. Right? Those are the days we want to celebrate. Those are the days you should gather with your family. Listen, you want to make a turkey? I ain't saying making a turkey, but make a turkey during Hanukkah, man. Right? Show me how you can fry some turkey or something, right? You want to make a pumpkin pie? Make a pumpkin pie during first fruits or something, right? Let me see what that pumpkin pie be looking like. Like, listen, aside from that, I ain't no pumpkin pie Thanksgiving weekend. No turkey. Anybody offer me turkey? I ain't even going to get a turkey sub for the rest of the month from Subway. So I ain't saying you gotta do that, but I'm just not messing with the turkey, right? And listen, you can't fight the man who has drones and tanks and jets and all that. They're making a space force because they think they can fight Yahushai and Michael and the archangels, right? They're making a space force. The ghetto, the reserve doesn't even have a force to stop our sisters from going missing. How are you gonna fight the oppressor? I'm waiting. Listen, if you have a way to fight the oppressor, just drop it in the comments, right? I want to see what it is. Hit me in the back chat. Drop it in the comments. Let's see. Let's see what it is, right? Because there's no way to fight the oppressor, but there is a way, right? Don't buy that turkey this weekend. Don't go buy it on Christmas. Don't go now, Salakia. I might have to go buy one of those Karen masks on Halloween so I can set it up for the camp and have it hanging in the camp. Salakia, because that's a monster. I ain't telling you to go out for Halloween though, right? But the things that they did to us, you can't set the oppressor straight because the Most High made them crooked, right? There was a time when they wanted to build the railroad across the east to the west to go develop the west coast of the Americas in Canada. They hunted the buffalo. They go in Google and on your Google machine and type buffalo head. And you'll see an oppressor standing on the top of a buffalo head. What they did was they got mercenaries again from all over the country, these hunters, to go hunt the buffalo and encamp and go hunt them. They did this because they knew it was the food source that the children of Gad relied upon. For clothing, for everything. It was their source, their way of life. They exterminated their food so they can go hungry, and that was a war tactic, right? And they did this so they could build a railroad. One second. Now there's something I want to look for. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to screen share it, but we'll see. Give me one moment. Right. So again, as we said, like there are a few things that come from the Greek gods, right? I'm gonna see, Lord willing, this computer starts to it works. Lord willing, this computer works. Let's see something real quick. Do. Rocky, if there's anything you want to add towards the subject, you could definitely add it.
Canada, Wakana.
Give me one moment. I'm just trying to pull up a picture right quick.
Salakia. I had a scripture I wanted to pull up.
Gone.
That'll be John 8 and 44, where it says, "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." Basically, our native brother should have never trusted in the oppressor, since he's a liar and he's the father of it, and he doesn't abide by any truth because there's no truth in him. He was a murderer from the beginning.
Right. That's definitely heavy. Our native brothers and sisters should have never trusted in these devils. Right? They don't have nothing good for us, man. Listen, there's an old saying: you sleep with a dog, you're gonna end up with fleas. That's extremely heavy, right? These Salakia, Barakia Allah. If there was two snakes in a room, one was poisonous and one wasn't, would you go in the room?
La'ad one.
Like right. I ain't going in that room. Shut the door on both of them, right? Just because some Becky comes up and says, I like you, Jamal. I like you, Kenneth. Like it's like I don't know why those are the things I came up with, but Salakia. Right? Listen, she'll say, Derek, you're handsome and I just like you. Right? I wanna bring you home. Listen, that's still a snake. Somewhere she has a poisonous snake lurking around the corner somewhere, right? And it's most likely going to be her father. It's most likely going to be her brother, right? Just because some Becky or some Brent starts to pay attention to you, or he acts like, yeah, I listen to rap music. I say nigga, but with the G-A and not the E-R, doesn't mean they like you, right? So we're gonna get into this real quick, right? So this is associated with Thanksgiving. Now Thanksgiving is also done in the fall. Thanksgiving is also associated with the god of the harvest, right? And because our oppressors, they like to, with their Christianity, they like to mix up a whole bunch of things, repackage it, and sell it to us like that's what it is, right? But this is a cornucopia, right? In Greek mythology, cornucopia comes from the Latin cornucopia, which translates literally as horn of plenty. A traditional staple of feasts, the cornucopia is believed to represent the horn of a goat of Greek mythology. According to the legend, it was from this horn that god Zeus was fed as an infant. Right? This also has to do, like they put this. If you ever looked at an Edomite's Thanksgiving table, they have this. Right? They have this right here. Right? We're gonna drop that, and we're gonna get into some more Greek history. One second. I don't want that. Don't want that. One second. I gotta find the data part of this. We're gonna read this real quick. Right. So, in ancient Greek religion and mythology, Demeter, right, is the Roman goddess of the harvest and agriculture, presiding over grains and fertility of the earth. She was also called Dio, right? These are things you could just Google, right? Her cult titles include Sito, she of the grain, as the giver of food and grain. Sethomorpho, Salakia. Seth, so, Sethmorphoros, divine order, unwritten law, bringer, bringer, barrier, giver of customs, the legislator in association with the secret female-only festival called Thessalmoria. The though Demeter is often described simply as a goddess of the harvest, she presides also over sacred law and the cycle of life and death. Right? Farming is a cycle of life and death. Right? This is another reason why they have the Thanksgiving in the fall, right? Because it's Greek customs to do so, right? It's celebrating the Greek god of the harvest, right? And that's something that the oppressors always had us do is celebrate his gods. He'll somehow mix it up. Like you'll have Christmas trees and not realize that it has to do with Nimrod, right? It has to do with Salakia. What else is Christmas? They also have some demon that some evil demon that if you're bad, the evil demon will punish you. Right? We'll celebrate Thanksgiving, not Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, when it's about two wolves raising some Greek deity, right? And about fertility and women being whipped bloody down the street, right? Anymore. Oh, we don't need that. Now we're gonna get to the Roman, right? Because it's damn near the same God in the Roman, right? In ancient Roman religion, Circes was a goddess of agriculture, grains, fertility, and motherly relationships. This is the same God, because the Greek gods are the Roman gods. Salakia, the Roman gods are the Greek gods. It's just one society came first, and just like how everything goes, eventually things evolve, things change. Right? This is the same. These are the same gods. Oh, Salakia. She was the goddess of agriculture, grains, crops, fertility, and motherly relationships. She was originally the central deity in Rome's so-called Philippian or Aventine triad. Then was paired with her daughter Proserpina in what Romans described as the Greek rites of Circe, right? And that's basically the same story as the Greeks. The Greek god, she had a daughter as well, right? It's basically the same story, right? And these are gods of harvest. And our oppressor, they would always have some type of feast, some type of sacrifice to a god that is not a god, to some stone, right? It's just like the Muslims of today worshiping a stone, right? Worshiping a stone and kissing it so much till everyone's walking away with herpes, right? So let's see if we got any more. Her 7-day April festival of Cerealia included the popular Ludi Cereal Circe's Games. She was also honored in May, the Striato, of the fields at the Barvela festival, at harvest time and during Roman marriages and funeral rites. She is usually depicted as a mature woman. Right? That's just a little bit of the Greek history on some of the things they associate with with Slovakia Thanksgiving. And you can see again, Thanksgiving has nothing to do with Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It's like at one point they're killing us. They're literally killing us and telling us, yeah, worship this. And we're just as Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, we're just eating it up. Literally, we're eating it up. We're eating up that dry ass turkey. That listen, Slovakia. I remember being in the world, going to a Thanksgiving dinner with a whole bunch of different nations. Now the turkey tastes alright because I was intoxicated. Right? I was in the world. I was a young man in the world, intoxicated, living life. The turkey tastes alright because liquor was flowing. There was it wasn't frankincense that was in the air, Slovakia, right? The next day, I opened the fridge to look at that turkey, and it was not appealing. It did not look good. You make that turkey, and the next day, it sits in your fridge for a week. Shit, sometimes 3 weeks. It might get stuck to the back of the fridge. You go to clean it out, and you're like, "What is this mold?" And you look at the foil, and Thanksgiving turkey. And you're like, "Good night." You throw that out. That's how the Most High looks at you. You know when the turkey's in the back of the fridge for like 4 weeks and it's mold and it's nasty. The stuffing is hard. The mashed potatoes is rock solid. That's how the Most High looks at you when you celebrate the other nation's feast days. He looks at you as disgust. He looks at you as I'm not even gonna feed this to the dogs, right? And then he lets the oppressors get over us. Right. But I'm gonna end it with my favorite verse, right? Because as much as we talked about how the oppressor has murdered us, he's gonna have to pay for it, right? Barak Yahweh, bring me to Revelations 13 and 10.
Khan. Revelations chapter 13, verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
Right. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans were led into captivity. Our brothers and sisters, they celebrated the death of 700 of our brothers and sisters, some being murdered, some being shot and clubbed to death. The rest were taken into captivity. They celebrate it and call it Thanksgiving. They put us in captivity. They put Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans into a captivity so fierce that Hitler turned around and modeled his concentration camps after American captivity, right? And guess what? Them big ass Jews, they got paid, right? They said 6 billion, 6 billion when it went over. Salakia, 1 second, I got that somewhere. For time's sake, over 15 billion, over 15 million were murdered. Over 50 million blacks, Hispanics, 50 million. 50 million blacks, Hispanics were murdered, right? And listen, that 50 mil is damn near from the Northern Kingdom alone, right? Now add up the number of so-called blacks, so-called Benjamites, Judites, and Levites that went through the slavery. Right? That number is down near 150 million of us that were murdered, genocide, right? Before we continue, let me just get the definition of genocide. the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. Right? Baraki Allah. Keep reading. Read from the top.
Khan Wakan, Revelations 13:10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword.
They killed us with the sword. They led us into captivity. Keep reading.
Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Right? You got to be patient. You got to keep the Most High's high holy days. Listen, they want to cancel Dave Chappelle. Guess what else is canceled? Thanksgiving is canceled. It's canceled. We ain't fucking with it. We ain't Salakia. Excuse my French. We're not messing with Thanksgiving. It's done. It's over. Right? It's about the killing of our brothers and sisters. Anytime someone tells you that Thanksgiving is something to be celebrated, just simply remind them it's about the killing of our brothers and sisters. Right? And with that said, we're gonna bring it close to this history class, right? I wanna give a shout out to everyone who was paying attention. If you're watching, so actually, I gotta drop the sign out link right quick. Baraki Allah, is there anything else you want to add while I drop the sign out link?
The oppressor is the goddamn devil the Bible speaks about.
Right, right. I messed with that one. I got you on that one. The oppressor is the devil the Bible speaks of. So I'm trying to get these sign out links together right quick. Right, I'm gonna read the announcements. I'm gonna read the announcements while I get the sign out link together. Bear with me a moment. Slovakia, give me one moment. As I drop the sign out links. Give me one moment. I'm gonna just drop the sign out links before I read the announcements.
Khan.
Again, if you're watching, Commanding General YAHANNA is on Blackwatch News on Commanding General YAHANNA, all on YouTube. Find that all on YouTube, going live right now. It's Monday night, so you know how it goes. We appreciate all the viewers, all the shares, all the likes, right? If you are trying to get in class, you want to be in a physical class, you want to name, you want to go to war for your brothers and sisters and actually be the change in your community, hit that sign out link, hit the sign in link, right? You're saying there's no I.S.U.P.K school in your city, you build the school, right? You build that school, raise up those brothers and sisters, get in here, learn your heritage, learn how to fight the oppressor and all the demons that he comes with. Right? I.S.U.P.K security announcements. We have an I.S.U.P.K started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rules for new brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shut themselves of the world. If a brother or if they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After the 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18 and 21, Malachi 3 verses 8 to 10. Ma'ashra, which means 10. 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you, gives to the treasury department or teacher. Priest fund. Due or offering for priests, not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you would like, up and coming holy convocations. The next up and coming holy convocation is the Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah in the Hebrew, the 25th day of the 9th month by the space of 8 days, Sunday the 28th of November 2021, the 8 days, 1 Maccabees 4:52 to 61. Reminder to Akium and Aqua to check the ISUPK.com website for any information. If anybody wants to be a trooper in the school, start wearing all black, boots, pants, headbands, and scarf. Right? With that said, men of Israelite Majum, Imagine Shabbat. Imagine Barak, Yahweh Shabbat Shem Yahweh Barak Thal, Yadimata, Imagine Shabbat, Imagine Barak. We're going to give a courtesy salute to the sisters. Yahweh Shema Alifan Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Yadimata, class dismissed.